want to start off this video by saying that I don't know anyone I'm going to talk about here personally, and therefore I can't really say what is true and what is false. Ultimately, neither I, nor Alex, nor anyone else can really say what Zaptie's true intentions were, so anything I say here will of course be my opinion. For the most part, I will leave fact-checking to those more involved, but the things I want to talk about here are much more subjective. If you hadn't read Zaptie's twit longer, then you really should. It's very compelling. I'll leave it on screen now so you can have a look, but I'll also link it in the description. The flow of the prose combined with the pirouettes of language are tragic and poetic. One of the lines in particular was utterly heartbreaking. As for where I've been, I'd already committed social suicide, so I moved on to the natural next step. There's something lyrical and tragic about it. It sticks in the mind. It leaves enough to the imagination that you can't help but paint the next step using the colours that mean most to you. It's because this post was so well written that this is such a difficult video to make. In no way do I want to demean or degrade mental health issues, and in particular suicide, but it's precisely because I feel so strongly about these issues that I think I have to say something. There's a few things that make me sceptical of Zaptie's statement, not least because he has been lying continuously for months, but also because it reads a little bit like a novel. It doesn't stink of sorrow, and whilst these may sound like the words of a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist, at least to me it seemed more manipulative than it did heartfelt. But my concerns don't stop at it sounds too good to be true, so it probably is. There's a common theme throughout this post, which is Zaptie trying to attach blame to Alex and the others without ever actually saying it's their fault. Whether or not this was intentional, who knows, but it was effective. If Ed had come out all guns blazing, Newton's third law states that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. If Zaptie had pushed too hard, others would have pushed back with equal force. Within the first two lines, Zaptie says, "My exact wording was that I was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, which turned into Ed's a diagnosed sociopath." This seems completely reasonable. Zaptie admits to part of what he said, but then implies that Alex twisted his words to paint him in a worse light. It's subtle, but the effect that it has is when Alex didn't drop the issue and instead made a livestream talking about how it was a lie, Alex just looked a little petulant. Some people have tried to brush this off as an issue of semantics, but it leaves an underlying question of, if Alex exaggerated that bit, what else did he hyperbolise? It makes Alex look sloppy on an issue where precision is key. Later on in the twit longer he says, "I don't blame anyone for not seeing that cry for help, as it's really hard to read." Again, this is a difficult one to argue, but it feels slightly as if he's trying to paint Alex as incompetent, and as if he should have been able to see it. Of course he wouldn't say that overtly, but the subtext of saying it's really hard to read is that perhaps others weren't up to the task. This is perhaps a bit of a stretch, so I won't mind if anyone disagrees on that point. Again, though, it's impossible to know if any of this was Zaptie's intention, but I think it's worth highlighting how Ed's words have been used by some to unfairly portray Alex's actions. Ultimately, I believe that most of what Zaptie is saying is true, and as such I wish him all the best with his recovery, and I hope he continues to make videos because they are really good. Whether or not I continue to watch is a separate question. But I'm not convinced the intent behind his statement is genuine, even if the large majority of it is true, and it baffles me that most people, bar a few, seem willing to take everything he says at face value, despite the fact he is a proven liar. The default position should be skepticism, not just here but in general. If I learnt anything from binge watching all 8 seasons of House a few weeks before my exams, it's that everybody lies. This logic obviously also applies to I'm Alex. Why should we believe anything he says? Well, we shouldn't take it at face value, but I think track record should come into it. Zaptie is a proven liar. Alex, as far as we know, hasn't lied about anything to do with this situation. Does that mean Alex is blameless? No. Throughout all of this, he is to come across like a martyr, saying things like, "I don't care if people talk about me, Aaron and Jimmy don't deserve the hate." It's not to say I don't understand the point he was trying to make, but they're both adults and they did something which deserves to be questioned. You don't have to try and throw yourself on the grenade, and if you do, you don't need to keep bringing up the fact that you did. That's like giving to charity and then trying to use that to show you're not a bad person. Ultimately though, I do think we should believe Alex before we believe Ed. I will say though that going on a live stream instead of making a video or a twit longer was a fairly classy move. Despite Tommy C thinking it's immature, I actually think it was the best way to approach the situation. Twitch isn't a perfect platform and you can't edit out mistakes, so I'll give him credit where it's due. But now let's talk about the coverage of the whole situation, focusing on two people in particular, Tommy C and VWQ. Let's start with Tommy C. If I had to sum up Tommy in one sentence, I would say he is a short, overweight man with a sub-70 IQ and a Napoleon complex. But that would be reductive, and it might hurt Tommy's feelings, so there's no way I'd say that. Tommy interviewed Zaptie just a few days prior to the initial revelations, and after The End was released, he immediately launched into attacking Alex off the back of something I would call Theroux syndrome. Louis Theroux is a famous documentary creator who I think is absolutely brilliant. Several years ago, he made a documentary about Jimmy Savile, a famous British television star from the 80s. A few years after that documentary was released, it came out that Savile had been a prolific paedophile and even necrophiliac. It's one of the most horrendous scandals in the last 40 years anywhere in the developed world. Last year, Theroux released another documentary revisiting the topic, armed with the knowledge of Savile's indiscretions, asking what he could have done differently. Should he have asked harder questions? Did he look away at the wrong time? Theroux felt guilt about having looked into the eyes of the devil and mistaking them for an innocent old man. That's the kind of response Tommy should have had. Instead, Tommy launched onto the offensive. Rather than admitting that he had no idea about how Zaptie really was, he attacked I'm Alex and made the situation about him rather than dealing with the actual context. It was easier for Tommy to attack the actively dislikable Alex. I mean, honestly, just look at his hair, his lid really is weak. Tommy then latched onto VWQ, who has made 3 videos on the topic. Tommy spouted out praises of VWQ as if he's going to be the next Pyrocynical. I've watched some of his videos, they're not bad, but his delivery is monotonous without really achieving comedy, and his editing and production, while some effort is clearly put in, is pretty generic. There's not a huge amount that differentiates a VWQ video from most other commentators apart from one thing. He said an opinion Tommy agreed with, so Tommy made it seem like the second coming. VWQ's first 2 videos were okay. I didn't agree with them, but they were mostly inoffensive. But don't ever start a video saying, I don't want to make this video.
I didn't really want to make a third video on this topic.
There are very few occasions when it's true, and it definitely isn't true here. You had no obligation to make a third video, in the same way that I have no need to make a second video. I've made this video because there are things I want to say. It's like when someone says, I don't want to appear smug, and then gloats in the following sentence, as well as in his previous tweet. You shouldn't gloat until you're certain that you're correct, and there's no way that VWQ can be certain that Zaptie isn't lying, because there's no way anyone can be. Honestly, VWQ's video is one of the most condescending videos I have ever seen, as well as being a massive case of projection. Alex is 17, not 7, so don't give me any of this crap about how he shouldn't be held to the same standards. I know 17-year-olds who are far more intelligent and coherent than Alex, Tommy, or VWQ. Not that the competition is particularly huge, but it's very condescending and wrong to act like just because you're more wise now than you were when you were 17, that you're better than every 17-year-old. Don't get angry with him for doubling down on the topic, because surely if he's right, then that's the correct thing to do. All of the points VWQ and Tommy made were just ways to avoid Alex's arguments without engaging them. Tommy using the Alex is too immature card is equivalent to me saying Tommy is old and out of touch. It might be true, but it's not a rebuttal. Going back to the projection issue, VWQ clearly had a difficult time with depression in his late teens, so he uses this personal experience and draws parallels from it. That's fine, it's an effective debating technique and can make it seem like you're making a good point even if the parallels are pretty thin. In essence, it's clear that VWQ wants to believe Ed is going through what he went through, so is projecting his own experiences onto Ed and those around him. It's effective, but it's baseless. This is made even more apparent when he says he spoke to someone involved for over an hour who was trying to convince him that Zaptie was a sociopath, but that he left even more convinced that his own narrative was correct. That's called confirmation bias. Again, it's effective, but it's mostly wrong. Confirmation bias is also the reason that neither Tommy nor VWQ ever put any real effort into engaging the idea that the pathological liar might still be lying. Particularly Tommy wanted to prove Alex wrong because Tommy is in a perpetual game of one-upmanship with the whole world. Maybe Zaptie picked up on the narrative that others put forward and he thought made the most sense to dig himself out of the hole he was in. VWQ didn't watch all of Alex's live stream before posting his video, and Tommy didn't watch any of it, but they both felt they would go live and talk about it and accuse Alex of being immature and of lying. Do you know what's immature? Not doing any research. Really? I've seen Wall Street Journal articles with more integrity. Also, VWQ mate, just have a shave. Doesn't take long, honest. And you'd look a lot less like you belong on a register. And to Zaptie, if you ever see this, I really do hope you get better. I hope you make more videos and I hope you make amends. But I also hope you understand my skepticism. I hope you don't think that I want you to fail. I don't. I wish you and everyone else involved in this situation the best. This whole situation has been incredibly messy, but ultimately I don't believe anyone is beyond redemption, so good luck. Thanks for watching, everyone. Sorry that this video took so long to come out. The whole topic died about 2 weeks ago now, and I've been dragging my feet and I've been busy at work and everything, so I have 2 more videos in the works and they'll be ready when they're ready. I've also started a second channel just to upload any shorter videos / videos I don't want to put up here, any of the skits I do / other stuff I put together. Basically it's a shitpost channel, but so don't feel like you're missing out if you don't subscribe, but if you want to, it's there. For now though, thank you for watching, I hope you've enjoyed it, and bye bye.